Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Sunday, July 2nd. This is Gina McGuire. Today we will continue to see thunderstorms shift further east and mainly affect central and eastern Utah. These thunderstorms may be isolated to scattered and on the drier side. Also, we'll see some gusty winds move into the Arizona Strip and southwest Utah and also far eastern Nevada today, with gusts between 25 and 35 miles per hour and continued very low relative humidity. We will also see our first push of monsoon moisture from mid to late week. This moisture looks like it will first target southern and western Nevada on Wednesday and then shift eastward across the basin as we move towards Thursday and Friday. We will continue to monitor these thunderstorms. They look like they will start as a mix of wet and dry, and we will continue to see how wet these storms get as we approach next weekend. However, in the meantime, we will see an increase in fire potential initially across the Great Basin. Over the last 24 hours, we had an area of low pressure move into the western side of the basin, bringing some scattered thunderstorms to northeast Nevada and far southern Idaho, also into the central Idaho mountains and far northwest Nevada. These thunderstorms only produce very light amounts of precipitation with strong and gusty outflow winds. We generally saw light to moderate initial attack across the Great Basin. Looks like most of our fires stayed small yesterday, and we still have the Bryan Head fire as our largest fire across the Great Basin. Over the last 1 to 4 weeks, the last 7 days have showed precipitation generally in the far north, and most of the area has been dry. Over the last 30 days, we've seen very dry conditions over the southern half of the Great Basin, where some of these areas have not seen appreciable rainfall in the last 1 to 3 months. Most of the precipitation has been focused over the northern half of the Great Basin and generally below normal, with the exception of parts of northern Nevada into southwest Idaho. How this has affected our current fuel conditions: ERCs have increased significantly over the southern half to 2/3 of the Great Basin, with ERCs generally above the 90th percentile and many sites now above the 97th percentile, especially across Utah and the Arizona Strip into eastern Nevada, and some of these areas are approaching records. Live fuel moistures have also decreased significantly with the drier and warmer conditions, and in Utah, sagebrush live fuel moisture is now approaching record lows. The satellite loop from this morning, along with 500 millibar height pressure, shows this trough of low pressure now moving eastward across Nevada, with cloud cover generally across Utah and Idaho today. This is also where we will see some isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms develop throughout the afternoon and evening. These thunderstorms will generally be on the drier side with some gusty outflow winds. Otherwise, dry and warm conditions will continue over the western side of the Great Basin. Now looking at the weather pattern for later today, again as this weak trough moves eastward, we will see some moisture linger over the eastern half of the Great Basin up into Idaho and Wyoming for some isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms, and we are highlighting that lightning activity over central and eastern Utah, considering how critical the fuels are, and even isolated thunderstorms may cause problems and initial fire starts with the potential for spread. Also, winds will be increasing today over the Arizona Strip in southwest Utah, so we have highlighted the wind conditions, again just due to how critical the fuels are if we see any starts in those regions. Relative humidity will remain in the single digits across much of Nevada and Utah, and just above 15% over much of Idaho and a little higher in Wyoming. However, you can see the wind picture on the right showing those gusty winds over the southern portion of the Great Basin. Right now, winds look like they'll be gusting around 30 miles per hour or just above, and you can see up in the Uinta Basin and the Uinta Mountains kind of the hint of the outflow winds associated with the lightning activity. So we will see strong and gusty outflows again today. By Monday, high pressure starts to rebuild across the Great Basin with warming and drying conditions region-wide. We may still see a few isolated thunderstorms in the far north, but fuels aren't as critical that far north. We will continue to see low to moderate fire potential. As we move into Monday, relative humidity will still remain low, may increase a little bit near the Idaho, Utah, and Nevada borders, however still remain generally in the single digits to low teens. As high pressure rebuilds, winds will generally be decreasing across the basin, still possibly a little breezy over far southern Utah. By Tuesday, that high really starts to take hold over the Four Corners region, keeping much of the basin very warm and dry, with temperatures reaching near 100 degrees in many of the lower elevations of northern Nevada and Utah, and above 110 over far southern areas of the basin. Relative humidity remains low with generally light winds. Up across Idaho, where we still have some lingering moisture, we may see a few isolated thunderstorms along with those gusty outflow winds. Overall forecast amounts of precipitation will generally be very light and tied only to thunderstorm activity, so very small areas may see some light precip, but for the most part, drier conditions prevail. As we move into the mid to late portion of next week, this is where the pattern really starts to change. We see that strong high pressure over the Four Corners area, And on Wednesday, we'll start to see moisture being pulled up around the area of high pressure into southern and western Nevada for a return of thunderstorms. So we have started to highlight those areas from the higher terrain of southern Nevada up into western Nevada for that initial push of moisture, bringing drier lightning. As we move into Thursday, we see drier air move into the far western side of Nevada, and that thunderstorm threat gets pushed eastward. Therefore, we'll see more expansive areas of thunderstorms across much of Nevada into southern Idaho. We'll also continue to see lightning potential over parts of Utah in the higher terrain. By Friday, that moisture starts to move eastward into Utah, and again, that lightning threat continues to push further east. We have continued to high risk this return of moisture with how critical the fuels are and the return of mixed wet and dry lightning. Some of these areas may change as we move towards late week as far as what areas really will be at the biggest threat for lightning, and we'll continue to monitor this. However, right now it still looks like drier air will continue to push into far northwest Nevada through the end of the week. By Saturday, very little change. We may see additional moisture move into the Arizona Strip and southern Utah for possibly some rainfall with these thunderstorms. We have not high-risked anything for Saturday yet, but we'll continue to monitor this as that risk of drier lightning may continue into the weekend. Overall forecast amounts of precipitation through the 7 days, which takes us into early next weekend, generally shows very spotty precipitation. However, this may change depending on the evolution of thunderstorms. The 8 to 14-day outlook takes us from mid-July through about the 15th. Still showing very warm conditions, but now a return of above normal precipitation as that monsoon moisture starts to take hold over the Four Corners area. Therefore, as we get into the third week in July, we may see additional moisture, especially for the eastern side of the Great Basin. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thanks for listening.